The private jets will touch down at Teterboro with barely a whisper, but Marcus Chen's heart thundered with anticipation. 3 months. 92 days of video calls, Time's own calculations, and falling asleep to Elena's voice crackling through international connections. The Singapore expansion had been a resounding success. 3 new offices, partnerships with major Southeast Asian firms, and revenue projections that would make even his most skeptical board members smile. But none of it mattered now. It was home. Marcus adjusted his Armani suit jacket as the car glided through Manhattan's evening traffic, the city's familiar pulse welcoming him back. Through tinted windows, he watched the blare of lights that at once seemed impossibly distant to a 12-year-old boy clutching his father's calloused hand at JFK Airport. Boychen had arrived in America with nothing but determination and a suitcase held together with rope, speaking broken English and carrying dreams too large for his slight from. Now, 28 years later, Marcus owned a penthouse that overlooked Central Park, employed over 2,000 people across 4 countries, and that built the kind of life his father could never have imagined. Yet the immigrant's son still lived within him, still felt the weight of every sacrifice we had made. The 16-hour days in restaurant kitchens, the night school English classes, the quiet dignity with which they endured casual racism and crushing exhaustion. The elevator climbed, silently, to the 42nd floor, each passing number bringing Marcus closer to the 2 people who mattered most. Elena would be in the kitchen, probably attempting another elaborate recipe from the cooking society become obsessed with during his absence. His father would be nearby, offering gentle suggestions in his careful English, the 2 of them having formed an unlikely but beautiful friendship while Marcus was away. They worried about leaving them together, not from any lack of trust, but from the natural anxiety of a man who loved deeply and had learned early that precious things could disappear without warnings. But Elena had insisted we move in during the expansion, claiming the penthouse was too quiet without Marcus, and his father needed the company after his recent health scare. Marcus smiled, imagining Elena's surprised scale when he appeared in the doorway 3 days early. They kept the change in schedule secret, wanting to see her face light up the way it had on their wedding day 4 years ago, when they walked down the aisle like something from a dream, her auburn hair catching the light, her green eyes finding his across a sea of faces. The elevator doors opened to his private foyer. Marcus set down his luggage quietly, his key turning in the lock with practiced silence. But as he stepped into the marble entryway, voices drifted from the kitchen, familiar tones carrying an unfamiliar edge that made him pause, his hand still on the door. Marcus froze in the shadows of the hallway, his hand still gripping the door handle as Elena's voice carried from the kitchen with crystalline clarity. "Wait, the ladies will be here any minute. Make sure you use the good china, the wet was said, not the everyday dishes. And please, try to keep the tea service quiet. We're discussing the charity gala, and I need them focused." The words hit Marcus like ether water. He pressed himself against the wall, his mind struggling to process the tone. Commanding, dismissive, nothing like the warm affection Elena had always shown his father during their video calls. "Of course, Elena," Cameve's measured response, his accent more pronounced than usual, the way it became when he was tired or stressed. "Solely prepare the cucumber sandwiches as well. Obviously. And make sure they're cooked properly this time. No crusts, perfect triangles. MS Whitmore noticed last week." Elena's heels clicked against the marble floor. "Oh, and wait. When you serve, you set everything down and leave. Don't have her. It makes my friends uncomfortable." Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. Through the archway, he could see his father's light figure moving with careful precision around the kitchen island, his 72-year-old hands arranging delicate porcelain with the same attention to detail the once brought to his restaurant work. We wore the crisp white shirt Marcus had bought him for Father's Day, but somehow it looked different now, less like Sunday vest, more like a uniform. The doorbell chimed, and Elena's voice brightened instantly. "Perfect, you mean. Wait, remember what he said." Marcus watched his father's shoulders straighten almost imperceptibly, a gesture he recognized from childhood, were preparing to face the world with dignity intact, no matter the cost. It was the same pasture held while enduring slaves from drunk customers, the same quiet strength that had carried him through decades of being overlooked and underestimated. Good afternoon, ladies. Elena's voice floated from the foyer, suddenly musical and warm. Come in, come in. I have the most divine Earl Grey waiting. The women's voices blended together, cultured, confident, discussing vacation homes in the Hamptons and their children's private school applications. Marcus recognized some of them. M.S. Whitmore from the Country Club, Sarah Chen Williams from Elena's Book Club, others from the social circle Elena had cultivated with the same strategic precision Seide once applied to her marketing career. They settled in the living room, their conversation a comfortable of privilege and assumption. Then Wei appeared, moving silently with the tea service, his movements economical and practiced. Marcus held his breath, waiting for the word of greetings, the respectful acknowledgement his father had always received when Marcus was present. Instead, the women barely glanced up. You set it on the coffee table, M.S. Whitmore said without looking, her manicured hand waving dismissively. Careful with the cream pitcher, it's baccarat crystal. Wei nodded, arranging everything with meticulous care. As a turned to leave, Sarah Chen Williams, whose own Asian heritage seemed to evaporate in this setting, spoke in a steady whisper that carried perfectly to Marcus' hiding place. Elena, you're so lucky to have found such reliable help. It's impossible to get good domestic staff these days. Most of them don't understand proper service. Marcus' blood turned to ice. Help. Domestic staff. They were talking about his father, the man who had built a life from nothing, who had sacrificed everything, so his son could stand in rooms like this as an equal. They've been wonderful, Elena replied, her voice carrying a note Marcus had never heard before. Proprietorial, almost smug. He really knows his place. The words soon in the air like poison. Marcus watched his father's back stiffen slightly, the only sign that the commenter landed. Wei continued toward the kitchen, his dignity wrapped around him like armor. But Marcus could see the cost in the careful control of his movements, the way his hands trembled almost imperceptibly as he gripped the empty tray. The tea is perfect, M.S. Whitmore announced. You must give him his recipe. Tory suppose it's used instinctive for them, isn't it? The casual racism hit Marcus like a physical blow. He pressed harder against the wall, his expensive suit suddenly feeling like a costume, his success like a house of cards beginning to sway. This was his world, the world they built, the life they created. But watching it through his father's eyes, he saw it differently. The subtle hierarchies, the unspoken assumptions, the way money and the status could make cruelty seem civilized. In the kitchen, Wei began washing the dishes with the same quiet precision he brought to everything. His reflection ghost-like in the window that overlooked the city he helped build with his invisible hands. Marcus waited until the last of Elena's friends departed, their laughter echoing down the hallway as the elevator doors closed. The penthouse fell silent except for the distant sound of Wei washing dishes in the kitchen. Marcus' hand shook as he loosened his tea, 3 months of anticipation curling into something bitter and unrecognizable. Elena appeared in the living room, kicking off her designer heels with a satisfied sigh. Perfect timing, so I said, not looking up. I was wondering when you'd. So I froze mid-sentence as I noticed him standing by the window, his reflection dark against the city lights. Marcus. Her voice carried a note of uncertainty. When did you get home? I thought your flight wasn't until Thursday. I caught an earlier connection. His voice sounded foreign to his own ears, carefully controlled. I wanted to surprise you. Elena's smile flickered, something calculating passing behind her green eyes. Well, you certainly did that. I wish you'd caer. I would have cancelled with the girls. We were just discussing the children's hospital gala. I heard. Marcus turned from the window, studying his wife's face as if seeing it for the first time. I heard everything. The color drained from Elena's cheeks, but so he recovered quickly, her expression shifting to practiced innocence. What do you mean? The way you spoke to my father. The way your friends spoke about him. Marcus' voice remained steady, but something dangerous lurked beneath the surface. Help, Elena? Domestic staff? Is my father. Elena's jaw tightened, her mask beginning to slip. Marcus, you're overreacting. Your father is perfectly fine. He's been happy to help out while you were gone. Happy to help. Marcus stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. You had him serving tea like a servant to women who called the help while you sat there and smiled. He offered to make tea. Elena shot back, her composure cracking. He didn't force him to do anything. Don't lie to me. The words came out sharper than Marcus intended. He heard you giving him orders. He heard you tell him to know his place. Elena's face flashed, anger replacing her careful facade. Fine. You want the truth? Your father has been driving me insane for 3 months. Do you know what it's like having him here? The way he shuffles around into the old sleepers, speaking Chinese to himself, cooking those smelly dishes that make the whole place reek. Marcus felt the ground shifting beneath his feet. Those smelly dishes are the food of my childhood. That's my culture you're talking about. Exactly. Elena's voice rose, years of suppressed frustration finally erupting. It's always about your culture, isn't it? Your traditions, your obligations, your guilt about where you come from. He married Marcus, the successful businessman, not some immigrant son who can't let go of the past. The words hit Marcus like physical blows. My father sacrificed everything for me. Everything I am, everything we have, exists because of him. And I'm supposed to be grateful for that. Elena laughed bitterly. Do you know how embarrassing it is when my friends ask about the old Chinese man living in our penthouse? What am I supposed to say? That my husband can't cut the cord with his father. You're supposed to say es family. Marcus' voice was deadly quiet now. You're supposed to say es welcome in our home because es my father and I love him. Elena's eyes flashed with something ugly. Your home, Marcus. This has always been your home, your money, your rules. You've spent 4 years playing the perfect wife, accommodating your cultural obligations, pretending to enjoy those endless dinners where everyone speaks Chinese and you sit there smiling like an idiot. No one ever expected you to, didn't they? Elena's voice turned venomous. Your father's disapproving looks when you don't know how to use chopsticks properly? The way your relatives whisper about the white woman who stole their golden boy? You've been performing for years, Marcus, and I'm tired of it. Marcus stared at his wife, seeing a stranger wearing Elena's face. You never said anything. You seem to love my father, my family. He loved you, Elena said, her voice softening with calculated manipulation. He loved you enough to tolerate all of it. But having him here, in our space, watching him turn our home into some kind of cultural museum, he can't do it anymore. He's 72 years old, Elena. He had a heart episode, and his family around him. Then put him in his facility. Elena's words were difficult. Some were appropriate for someone his age. Some were be comfortable with his own kids. The frozen in the air like a slap. Marcus felt something fundamental break inside his chest. 4 years of marriage crumbling into dust. His own kind. Elena realized she began to offer, but it was too late to retreat. You know what I mean. Somewhere I want to feel out of place. The only place he feels out of place, Marcus said slowly, is in his own son's home, because his son's wife sees him as an embarrassment. Marcus, please. Elena's voice turned pleading, but her eyes remained calculating. We can work this out. But you have to choose. It's him or me. I want a life like this anymore, pretending to be someone I'm not, accommodating every aspect of your past. I married you for our future, not your father's comfort. Marcus looked at the woman he loved, the woman he thought understood him, and saw only a beautiful stranger who had been wearing a mask for 4 years. In the kitchen, he could hear his father moving quietly, cleaning up after people who saw him as invisible, maintaining his dignity in a home where it was merely tolerated. The choice Elena demanded wasn't really a choice at all. The silence stretched between Marcus and Elena like a chasm, but in the kitchen, Weichen continued his quiet ritual of cleaning, each movement deliberate and meditative. As he dried the delicate wetwood teacups, memories washed over him like waves against weathered stone. It hadn't started this way. The first week after Marcus left for Singapore, Elena had been different, warmer, almost. She asked about his arthritis, brought him tea while he read his Chinese newspapers in the morning sun. We had allowed himself to open that perhaps, without Marcus as a buffer, they might finally understand each other. The shift came gradually, like winter creeping into autumn. "Boy, I'm having a few friends over tomorrow," Elena had said during his second week there, her voice carrying a new edge. "It might be better if you stayed in your room while they were here. You understand, it's a work thing, very boring for you." We had nodded, recognizing the dismissal but choosing to see kindness in it. The next day, Eddie remained in the guest room that had become his sanctuary, listening to the sounds of laughter and conversation that seemed to belong to a different world. When one of the women had asked about the elderly gentleman, Elena's response had drifted through the thin walls. "Oh, that's just our housekeeper. It's very quiet." Housekeeper. The word had settled in Bay's chest like a stone. By the third week, Elena had presented him with a handwritten list, house guidelines for comfort and harmony. She decayed it, her smile brief and false. No cooking ethnic foods when guests were expected. No speaking Chinese on the phone in common areas. No using the main elevator when Elena was entertaining. The pool and gym were off limits during social hours. We had read the air rule carefully. His English still precise after all these years in America. Ed folded the paper and placed it in his pocket, saying only, "I understand." But understanding and accepting were different things. The worst moment had come just last week. MS from 42 had encountered Way in the hallway, struggling with grocery bags after Elena had forgotten to arrange delivery. "Mr. Chen, let me help you," the kind woman had insisted, taking off his burden. "How are you settling in with your son and daughter-in-law?" Before a way cold and swear, Elena had appeared, her smile sharp as glass. "Mr. Rodriguez, how lovely to see you. I see you've met our life in help. Veis been as a blessing, so reliable and discreet." Mr. Rodriguez's eyebrows had risen slightly, her gaze shifting between Elena's bright expression and Veis' carefully neutral face. "Help," she repeated slowly. "Family help," Elena had clarified quickly. "You know how it is with elderly relatives, they like to feel useful." The elevator read afterward had been suffocating. We had stared at the numbers climbing, each floor marking another layer of his diminishing dignity. When they reached the penthouse, Elena had turned to him with that same brittle smile. "You understand, way. It's just easier this way. People have certain expectations about, well, about how things work in buildings like this." We had understood perfectly. In Elena's world, it was an inconvenience to be managed, a reminder of Marcus' origins that needed to be carefully contained and explained away. It was the immigrant father who didn't quite fit the narrative of her successful husband's polished life. That night, we had called his old friend Chen Lu in Chinatown, speaking in rapid Mandarin about everything except what mattered most. How could they tell anyone that his son's wife saw him as a servant? How could they admit that in his own son's home, it felt more invisible than it had in his first years in America, when his English was broken and his dreams seemed impossibly distant? The next morning, Ed found Elena in the kitchen, already dressed for another social gathering. "Wait," she said without looking up from her phone. "I need you to understand something. Marcus works very hard to maintain a certain image, a certain lifestyle. When my friends see complications, it reflects poorly on him. Oh no, I'm sure you want what's best for your son." The manipulation had been elegant, wrapped in concern for Marcus' welfare. But we had recognized it for what it was, a threat disguised as care, a reminder that his place in this golden cage was entirely dependent on Elena's tolerance. Now, As he finished the last of the dishes, we could hear voices rising in the living room. His son had returned, and the careful balance Elena had maintained was crumbling. Part of him felt relief that the pretense was finally ending. But another part, the part that had spent a lifetime protecting his son from the world's cruelties, wondered if some truths were too painful to bear. Through the kitchen window, the city sparkled with promise and possibility. The same view that had filled him with pride for what his son had achieved. Tonight, it looked different, beautiful but cold, like everything else in this place where love came with conditions and acceptance at a price. The knock on the door came 20 minutes after Elena had stormed into the bedroom, slamming it hard enough to rattle the picture frames. Marcus stood frozen in the living room, his world still reeling from revelations that had shattered 4 years of marriage in a single conversation. When he opened the door, Ms. Rodriguez stood in the hallway, her weathered hands clutching a small plate of empanadas. "Mr. so he said softly, her accent carrying the warmth of her native Puerto Rico. He heard voices. "I hope everything is okay." Marcus looked at the elderly woman, really looked at her, for perhaps the first time since moving into the building. Carmen Rodriguez had lived on the 42nd floor for over 15 years, a retired social worker whose gentle presence they always acknowledged with polite nods but never truly seen. Ms. Rodriguez, I. Marcus began, then stopped, unsure how to explain the wreckage of his evening. "May I come in?" Soy asked, her dark eyes kind but determined. "I think we need to talk about your father." Something in her tone made Marcus step aside. Ms. Rodriguez entered the penthouse with the careful dignity of someone who had learned to navigate spaces where Soy wasn't entirely welcome. Soy set the empanadas on the marble counter and turned to face him. "Where is Way?" Soy asked. "In his room, I think." Marcus ran a hand through his hair. "Ms. Rodriguez, if this is about noise, this isn't about noise, mijo." Her voice carried a firmness that reminded Marcus of his elementary school teachers. "This is about what I've been watching happen to that beautiful man for 3 months." Marcus felt his chest tighten. "What do you mean?" Ms. Rodriguez moved to the window, gazing out at the city lights. "I believed in this building long enough to see many things. Rich people, poor people, good people, bad people. But I've never seen anything like what your wife has been doing to your father." Elena told me they got along well while he was gone. Elena told Julius. Ms. Rodriguez turned back to him, her expression grave. "I've seen your father using the service elevator, Marcus. The service elevator. Like he was delivering groceries instead of living here." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. "That's not," Soy volunteered. I've heard her introduce him as the help to her friends. I've watched him carry their shopping bags while they ignored him completely. Last week, I saw him waiting in the lobby for over an hour because Elena told him he couldn't come upstairs while Soy was entertaining. A harsh word hit Marcus like a physical blow. "Why didn't you say anything?" Ms. Rodriguez's eyes filled with tears. "Because I know what it's like to be the brown face that don't belongs. When I first moved here, some residents complained about the building's changing character. I learned to make myself small, invisible. I recognized that look in your father's eyes, the look of someone trying to disappear." Marcus sank onto the couch, his legs suddenly unsteady. "I had no idea." "Your father is protecting you," Ms. Rodriguez said gently. "Just like my mother protected me when the kids at school called me names. Just like we'll protect the people we love from the ugly truth about how the world sees us." But Elena, she seemed to care about him. She called me, told me how well they were getting along. Ms. Rodriguez sat beside him, her presence both comforting and devastating. "Mijo, I've worked with abusers for 30 years. They're very good at managing the narrative. Your wife knew exactly what to tell you to keep you from worrying." Marcus talked about the video calls, Elena's brief smile as Zoe described Vei's helpfulness, the way she positioned herself as the caring daughter-in-law managing his father's needs. "It had all been performance," carefully orchestrated to maintain his trust while systematically destroying his father's dignity. 2 weeks ago, Ms. Rodriguez continued, I found your father sitting in the stairwell, crying. He told me I was just tired, but he knew better. A man doesn't cry like that from being tired. He cries like that from being broken. The image of his proud father weeping in a concrete stairwell made Marcus' vision blur. Wei Chen, who had faced down racist customers and impossible odds, who had built a life from nothing through sheer determination, reduced to hiding his tears in a building he so owned. He should have done something sooner, Ms. Rodriguez said, her voice heavy with regret. But he kept hoping you'd come home and see for yourself. He kept thinking maybe he was wrong. Maybe he was seeing things that weren't there. You weren't wrong. Marcus' voice was barely a whisper. He just saw it tonight. The way she spoke to him. The way her friends treated him. Like it was invisible. Ms. Rodriguez reached over and squeezed his hand. Your father is not invisible, Marcus. He's one of the most dignified men I've ever met. Even when your wife was treating him like a servant, he never lost his grace. But grace has limits, and dignity can only bend so far before it breaks. Marcus looked toward the hallway where his father's room lay in darkness. Behind another door, Elena was probably planning her next move, calculating how to regain control of the narrative. But the truth was finally out, witnessed and documented by someone who understood the subtle cruelties that money and the status could inflict. What do you do now? Marcus asked. Ms. Rodriguez stood, smoothing her dress with hands that had comforted countless victims over the years. You do what your father did when he brought you to this country. So he said firmly. You choose love over comfort. You choose family over convenience. And you make sure that man knows he's not alone anymore. As I moved toward the door, Ms. Rodriguez paused. And Marcus, document everything. Write it down, record it if you have it to. Because people like your wife, they're very good at making others doubt what they've seen. Don't let her rewrite this story. The door closed softly behind her, leaving Marcus alone with the weight of truth and the sound of his father's quiet movements in the next room. Marcus stood in the hallway outside his father's room. Ms. Rodriguez's words echoing in his mind like a pre-randa warning. The soft sound of Wei moving about, probably preparing for bed with the same quiet ritual they maintained for decades, felt both comforting and heartbreaking. Before a Marcus could knock, Elena's voice could throw the silence from behind him. So that's it? You're going to stand there all night feeling sorry for yourself. Marcus turned to find his wife in the doorway of their bedroom, her silk robe wrapped tightly around her like armor. Her face was flushed, whether from anger or wine, he couldn't tell. Elena, we need to talk about this rationally. Rationally. Elena's laugh was sharp and bitter. There is nothing rational about this situation, Marcus. You've been living in a nightmare for 3 months, and you want to talk rationally. Marcus moved away from his father's door, not wanting Wei to overhear what was coming. Lower your voice. Don't tell me to lower my voice in my own home. Elena followed him into the living room, her heels clicking against the marble with military precision. That's exactly the problem. This stopped being my home the moment your father moved in with his shuffling slippers and his herbal teas and his constant Chinese chatter. This is his home too, Marcus said quietly. He invited him here. You invited him for a visit, not a permanent residency. Elena's voice rose despite his request. Do you know what it's been like? Having to explain to everyone why Tere's an old Chinese man living in urban Tose? Having to watch him bow and scrap around my friends like some kind of stereotype. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. Stereotype. Elena's mask was completely gone now, her beautiful features twisted with frustration and something ugly. Yes, stereotype. The submissive as an elder, grateful for whatever scraps of kindness we throw him. It's embarrassing, Marcus. It makes you look weak. It makes me look like a son who loves his father. It makes you look like someone who can't let go of the past. Elena began passing, her movements sharp and dieted. Do you think the vidmores have elderly relatives shuffling around their pentose? Do you think the Asford sabe to explain why their father-in-law speaks broken English and smells like in her? I word was a naive, precisely am done deliberately cruel. Marcus watched his wife, this woman the love, this woman the thought knew, and saw a stranger wearing Elena's face. My father don't smell like in her, Marcus said, his voice dangerously quiet. It smells like otherness, Elena snapped. Like everything the baby trying to help you move past. When he married you, he thought he was getting the successful American businessman, not the immigrant's son who can't cut the cord. To se are the same person, Elena. They be always being the same person. No, they are not. Elena's voice cracked with frustration. The Marcus she fell in love with was sophisticated, worldly, American. He didn't come with vague and double accents and constant reminders of where he came from. Marcus stared at her, understanding finally dawning. You never loved me. You loved the version of me that you thought you could create. Elena's eyes flashed. He loved your potential. He loved what we could build together, a real American success story. But you kept dragging ways backward with your guilt and your cultural obligations and your need to honor every tradition from the old country. The old country. Marcus' voice was barely controlled. You mean China? The place where my father was born? The culture that's shaped the man who raised me. The culture that's holding you back. Elena exploded. Do you know what I had to endure? Sitting through those endless dinners where everyone speaks Chinese and I'm the only with a face at the table? Pretending to enjoy food that tastes like medicine? Smiling while your relatives whisper about whether I'm good enough for their precious golden boy? Marcus felt the last of his illusions crumble. They never whispered about you, Elena. They welcomed you. They tried to include you. They tolerated me. Elena corrected viciously. Just like I've tolerated all of this. But I'm done tolerating. I'm done pretending. I want my life back, Marcus. I want our life back, the life we had before your father turned our home into some kind of cultural museum. What exactly are you asking for? Elena's smile was cold and calculating. I'm asking you to choose. Your father goes to an IS facility. I've already researched several excellent options, or he leave. It's that simple. Marcus felt the room spinning around him. You're giving me an ultimatum. I'm giving you clarity. Elena moved closer, her voice dropping to a persuasive whisper. Think about it, Marcus. We could have our life back. No more walking on eggshells, no more explaining, no more accommodating. We could redecorate, get rid of all those Chinese artifacts and scrolls that make the place look like a museum. We could entertain properly again, travel without worrying about elderly care, focus on our future instead of being dragged down by the past. The casual cruelty of it took Marcus' breath away. Those artifacts are my heritage. That's my father you're talking about disposing of. Your heritage is what you choose it to be. Elena said firmly. You're American now, Marcus. You've been American for decades. You don't need to carry the weight of your father's immigrant story anymore. You don't need to be defined by where you come from. Marcus looked at this woman who had shared his bed for 4 years, who had promised to love him in sickness and health, for better or worse. And if he chose my father? Elena's expression hardened. Then you choose a lonely old date with a man who will be dead in a few years anyway. You choose to throw away everything we've built for the sake of misplaced loyalty to someone who's already lived his life. The words soon in the air like poison gas. Marcus felt something fundamental shift inside him, like tectonic plates realigning after an earthquake. The woman standing before him wasn't just asking him to abandon his father. She was asking him to abandon himself, to cut away every part of his identity that didn't fit her vision of who he should be. I need time to think, Marcus said finally. Elena's smile was triumphant, as if his hesitation was already a victory. Of course you do. But don't take too long, darling. I've already started looking at apartments. And Marcus. So he paused at the bedroom door, her voice carrying a final, devastating blow. When you make your choice, Remember that your father will begin someday regardless. But he could be here for the rest of your life, if you're smart enough to choose your future over your past. The bedroom door closed with a soft click, leaving Marcus alone in the living room that suddenly felt like a mausoleum of broken dreams and shattered illusions. Marcus stood alone in the living room, Elena's ultimatum echoing in the silence like a dead sentence. The city lights blared through the floor-to-ceiling windows as I struggled to process the magnitude of what had used occurred. 4 years of marriage, reduced to a choice between love and convenience, between heritage and acceptance. The soft sound of a door opening made him turn. We emerged from the hallway, no longer the diminished figure Marcus had glimpsed serving tea earlier. His father mobile with purpose, his spine straight, wearing the same dignity that had carried him through decades of struggle. In his hands, held a small leather journal, the one Marcus remembered from childhood, where we had practiced English phrases and recorded his dreams for his son's future. Vea Marcus Vegan, using the Mandarin word for father that felt like coming home. You should rest. It's been a long day. We shook his head slowly, his dark eyes clear and determined. You've been resting for 3 months, my son. Resting my voice, resting my spirit, resting my right to exist in this place. Tonight, I stop resting. Before Marcus could respond, Elena's bedroom door opened again. So he appeared in a fresh outfit, designer jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than base monthly expenses in his old apartment. Her hair was perfectly styled, her makeup refreshed, as if preparing for battle. "Wait," so I said with forced brightness, "you should be sleeping. Tomorrow we can discuss some lovely facilities I've found." No. The single word could throw Elena's rehearsed speech like a blade. We stepped forward, and Marcus saw something they hadn't witnessed in months, his father occupying space without apology. "We will not discuss facilities. We will discuss respect. Punto." Elena's smile faltered. "I'm sorry." "You should be sorry," we said, his accented English carrying the weight of 7 decades of experience. "But not to me. You should be sorry to yourself for becoming the kind of person who sees another human being as an inconvenience to be managed." Marcus watched his wife's face cycle through surprise, irritation, and something approaching fear. So he had never heard Wei speak with such authority. I'd never seen him claim his rightful place in any conversation. "Wei, I think there has been a misunderstanding." "There has been no misunderstanding." Wei opened his journal, his weathered fingers finding a specific page. "You've been writing, Elena. Writing down every day of these 3 months. Every word you have spoken to me, every rule you have given me, every time you have introduced me as the help to your friends." Elena's face went pale. "I never. My 15th. Wei reading his careful English. Elena tells me I cannot use the main elevator when her book club meets because it makes her friends uncomfortable. My 22nd. Elena asks me to eat dinner in my room because the smell of my food is too ethnic for her dinner party." Marcus felt his chest tighten as his father continued reading, each entry a small cruelty documented with heartbreaking precision. "Hunetierd," we continued. "Elena tells me as Whitmore that I am reliable help and know my place. June 10th, Elena gives me a list of rules about when I can speak Chinese in this house, my son's house, where he was invited to live as family." "Stop," Elena said, her voice sharp with panic. "This is ridiculous. You're taking everything out of context." We closed the journal and looked directly at Elena, his gaze steady and unflinching. "Context. The context is that you see me as less than human. The context is that you believe my accent makes me stupid, my traditions make me backward, my presence makes you ashamed." "That's not true," Elena protested, but her voice lacked conviction. "It is true," we said simply. "And it is also true that I allowed it. I allowed it because I thought it was protecting my son's happiness. I thought if I made myself small enough, quiet enough, invisible enough, you would let me stay closer to the child I raised, the man I am proud of." Marcus stepped closer to his father, feeling the pull of shared blood and shared struggle. Bea, you don't need to. Yes, I do. Bea's voice grew stronger. For 3 months, I have watched this woman try to erase me from your life, Marcus. Not just remove me from this house, but erase the part of you that comes from me. The part that speaks my language, honors my sacrifices, remembers where we come from. Elena's composure cracked completely. Your sacrifices. You think working in restaurants and living in Chinatown makes you some kind of hero? You think your struggles give you the right to drag Marcus backward into poverty and limitation? My struggles, Wei said with quiet fury, gave Marcus the foundation to build everything he has achieved. My sacrifices, both his education, his opportunities, his chance to become the man you claim to love. But you do not love him, Elena. You love the idea of him, the successful businessman stripped of his history, his culture, his family. Marcus felt something shift inside him, like a key turning in a lock and realized was there. His father's words weren't just defending himself, they were defending the part of Marcus that Elena had been systematically trying to eliminate. You want to know about sacrifice? Wei continued, his voice rising with decades of suppressed dignity. I sacrificed my homeland, my language, my comfort, so my son could have choices in Everett. I worked 16 hour days so I could go to university. I learned English at night school so I could help him with homework. I saved every penny so I could start his business. Elena's face twisted with frustration. And now you want him to sacrifice his future for your comfort. I want him to remember who he is, Wei said firmly. I want him to understand that success without honor is meaningless. That wealth without family is poverty. That a man who abandons his father for a woman's approval has lost more than he can ever gain. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus looked between his father, standing tall with the dignity of a man who had built a life from nothing, and his wife, whose beautiful face was contorted with the ugly reality of her prejudices. You're forcing him to choose, Elena said desperately. You're manipulating him with guilt and obligation. I am not forcing anything, Wei replied. I am simply refusing to disappear. I am refusing to pretend that my life, my culture, my love for my son are shameful things that must be hidden. If that makes you uncomfortable, Elena, perhaps you should ask yourself why. 6 months after Elena's departure, the penthouse had transformed into something Marcus barely recognized, not because it looked different, but because it finally felt like home. The morning sun streamed through windows that no longer seemed like barriers between worlds, illuminating the calligraphy scrolls weighed on in the living room and the family photographs that had emerged from storage like hibernating memories awakening to spring. Marcus stood in the kitchen, watching his father teach origami to Ms. Rodriguez's 8-year-old granddaughter, Sophia, who visited every Saturday morning. Wei's patient hands guided her small fingers as they folded paper into crayons. His English mixed freely with Spanish phrases he learned from Carmen, and the catching and Mandarin words that Sophia was beginning to understand. Abuelo Wei, Sophia said, using the Spanish word for grandfather that had naturally evolved between them. Tell me again about the dragons. Wei's eyes crinkled with joy as he launched into the story of Chinese New Year celebrations, his voice carrying the same warmth it had when Marcus was Sophia's age. The kitchen filled with the aroma of Wei's weekend cooking, dumplings steaming in bamboo baskets, tea brewing in the ceramic pot that had been his motes, since that Elena had once vanished but now perfumed the air with belongings. The business had not just survived Elena's campaign, it had evolved into something stronger and more authentic. The clients who had fled based on whispered rumors had been replaced by partnerships that valued integrity over images. Pacific Ventures had become the largest investor, and the Singapore expansion had exceeded all projections. More importantly, Marcus had discovered a network of entrepreneurs who understood the unique challenges of building success while maintaining cultural identity. Emerging. Vidas Ford appeared in the kitchen doorway, no longer the uncomfortable messenger of bad news but a friend who had learned to appreciate Wei's Saturday morning cooking lessons. The conference call with the soul partners is ready when you are. Marcus nodded, then paused to watch Sophia successfully complete her crane under base gentle guidance. The sight filled him with a contentment he'd never experienced during his marriage, the deep satisfaction of a life lived without apology or compromise. The home office had been redesigned to accommodate both Marcus' business needs and his growing role as an informal community elder. 3 afternoons a week, elderly immigrants from across the city gathered in their living room for what had started as informal tea sessions and devolved into a support network. MRS from the laundry, MR Nguyen from the corner market, MRS Patel from the medical building. They come to share stories, practice English, and find community in a city that could be isolating for those whose accents marked them as perpetual outsiders. Your father has created something beautiful here, Dr. Priya Patel had observed during one of these gatherings. Is giving people permission to be themselves while still belonging. The Soul Conference call went smoothly, conducted in a mixture of English and Korean that would have horrified Elena but felt natural to Marcus now. His business success no longer required cultural camouflage. Instead, his multilingual abilities and cross-cultural understanding had become competitive advantages in an increasingly global marketplace. After the call, Marcus found a way in the garden terrace they created on the building's roof, a space Elena had never used but which had become a vast sanctuary. His father tended to vegetables and herbs that connected him to memories of his childhood in one thought, while also growing the cilantro and jalapenos that Mrs. Rodriguez had requested for her cooking. Vea, Marcus said, settling beside his father on the bench they installed overlooking the city. Are you happy here? We consider the question with the thoughtfulness that had always characterized his responses. Happy is a simple word for a complicated feeling, he said finally. I am content. I am useful. I am seen and valued for who I am, not despite who I am. Marcus understood the distinction. Happiness could be fleeting, dependent on circumstances and other people's approval. But contentment, the deep satisfaction of living authentically, was something that came from within and couldn't be taken away by others' prejudices or expectations. I've been thinking about Elena, Marcus admitted. Not missing her, but trying to understand how we could have been so blind to who I really was. These weathered hands continued their gentle work among the plants. Love makes us see what we wish to see, said. But love without respect is not love, it is possession. So I love the idea of you, the versions she could control and display. That is not the same as loving the person you are. The wisdom into the words settled over Marcus like a comfortable weight. Elena loved his success, his appearance, his potential to fit into her world. But I had never loved his heritage, his family, his authentic self. So he had loved unconditionally, with the expectation that he would gradually shed the parts of himself that didn't align with her vision. You said to think assimilation meant becoming invisible, Marcus said. Blending in so completely that no one would question my right to be here. And now, Marcus gestured toward the city spread below them, toward the community they built, toward the life they created that honored both their past and their future. Now I think it means becoming so authentically yourself that you change the definition of what belongs. Boy smiled, the expression transforming his face with quiet pride. Your mother would have been proud of the man you've become, not the successful businessman. She always knew you would achieve great things. But the son who chose family over convenience, heritage over acceptance, truth over comfort. As the sun set over Manhattan, painting the sky in shells of gold and crimson, Marcus felt the deep satisfaction of a life reclaimed. The penthouse was no longer a golden cage designed to impress others, but a home that celebrated the fullness of who they were. The business was no longer a performance of acceptability, but an authentic expression of his values and vision. Sophia's laughter drifted up from the apartment below, where she was probably teaching Mrs. Rodriguez the origami techniques we had shown her. The sound carried the promise of a future where cultural identity was a source of strength rather than shame, where success didn't require the sacrifice of authenticity, where love meant acceptance rather than assimilation. Marcus had learned that true strength came not from choosing between his roots and his wants, but from understanding that they were inseparable, that the depths of his heritage gave power to his flight, and that honoring his father's sacrifices was not a limitation but a liberation. In the growing darkness, the city lights began to twinkle like earthbound stars, a one representing a story of struggle and success, of dreams pursued and identities preserved. Marcus and Way sat in comfortable silence, 2 generations of the same journey, finally home in their own skin and in their own space, surrounded by a chosen family that celebrated rather than merely tolerated the fullness of who they were. The golden cage had been transformed into something far more valuable, a foundation of love, respect, and authentic belonging that no amount of prejudice or pressure could ever destroy. Marcus felt the weight of the moment settling around them like destiny. His father had found his voice, had reclaimed his dignity, had drawn a line that could not be uncrossed. The choice Elena had demanded was no longer between his father and his wife. It was between the man he truly was and the man so he wanted him to become. Elena looked between father and son, seeing perhaps for the first time the unbreakable bond that connected them, the shared strength that no amount of money or social pressure could diminish. Her isolation in that moment was complete. Her prejudices laid bare, her ultimatum revealed as the hollow truth it had always been. Fine, so he said, her voice brittle with defeat and dry. Choose your backward traditions and your immigrant guilt. But don't expect me to stay and watch you throw away everything we built together. As I turned toward the bedroom, Marcus realized that what they had built together was already gone, and perhaps never truly existed at all. Elena's departure came with the precision of a military operation. By morning, her belongings were gone, packed by a team of movers who worked with the efficiency of people accustomed to wealthy divorces. So he left behind only the scent of her perfume and a single note on the marble counter. You I regret this choice. Marcus stood in the suddenly spacious penthouse, watching his father prepare breakfast with the same quiet dignity he maintained through 3 months of humiliation. The morning light streaming through the windows seemed brighter somehow, as if Elena's absence had lifted as though neither of them had fully acknowledged. The first call came at 9:30. Marcus, we need to talk. David's forced voice carried an unusual tension. As Marcus' business partner and oldest friend from Harvard, David had never sounded so formal. Can you come in early today? By the time Marcus reached their midtown offices, the damage was already spreading like wildfire through their social and professional circles. Elena had moved quickly, her network of influential friends becoming weapons in a campaign of calculated destruction. She's telling everyone you've had some kind of breakdown, David said, closing the conference room door behind them. That you've become obsessed with your ethnic identity and can't be trusted to make rational business decisions. Marcus felt his stomach drop. What exactly is so saying? David's discomfort was palpable. That you're prioritizing family obligations over business commitments. That you've become unreliable, to focused on cultural issues, to maintain professional relationships. She's questioning your judgment, your loyalty to American business interests. The coded language was unmistakable. Elena was weaponizing every racist stereotype about Asian Americans, painting Marcus as the perpetual foreigner whose loyalties were forever divided. It was a masterclass in professional assassination, a accusation carefully crafted to sound reasonable while carrying devastating implications. The Whitmore account is reconsidering their contract, David continued reluctantly. Sarah Chen Williams convinced her husband to pull their investment from the Singapore expansion. 3 board members have called emergency meetings. Marcus sank into his chair, understanding the full scope of Elena's revenge. So it wasn't just leaving him. She was attempting to destroy everything he built, using his heritage as a weapon against his success. There is more, David said quietly. She's claiming you've been financially supporting questionable overseas connections. She's implying money laundering, Marcus. Foreign influence. The accusations were absurd but dangerous, playing into xenophobic fears that could destroy careers and reputations. Marcus realized de Lena had en plan en discampa en long before their confrontation, gathering ammunition for the moment he refused to comply with her demands. What do you think? Marcus asked his partner directly. David was quiet for a long moment. I think Elena's a vindictive woman was trying to hurt you in the most damaging way possible. But Marcus, some of these people, they're listening. The country club crowd, the old Bonnie families, they're eating this up. Before Marcus could respond, his assistant knocked on the door. Mr. Chen? There is a call from James Liu at Pacific Ventures. Says it's urgent. Marcus took the call, expecting another cancellation. Instead, James' voice carried warmth and solidarity. Marcus, I heard what's happening. Elena's been calling around, spreading poison. I want you to know, Pacific Ventures stands with you completely. We're doubling our investment in your Singapore expansion. The unexpected support was overwhelming. James, you don't have it all. Yes, I do. My grandfather faced the same kind of character assassination in the 1960s when he tried to expand beyond Chinatown. They questioned his loyalty, his integrity, his right to succeed in America. I want to watch it happen to another generation. Over the next few hours, the calls multiplied. Maria Santos from Santos Construcción, whose family had immigrated from Mexico, offered her full support. Amel Hassan, whose tech startup had faced similar whisper campaigns, played his backing. Dr. Priya Patel, whose medical practice served the building's residents, called to express her solidarity. We will be where you are, Dr. Patel said during their conversation. The moment when success makes you a target, when your heritage becomes a weapon against you. The question is whether you will let them win. But for every voice of support, there was a corresponding loss. The country club membership committee scheduled a review of his standing. 3 major clients requested meetings to reassess their partnerships. Social invitations dried up as Elena's version of events spread through Manhattan's elite circles. M.S. Rodriguez appeared at his door that evening, carrying another plate of food and a fierce expression. That woman is telling lies about you and your father, so he said without preamble. I heard her talking to people in the lobby, poisoning minds with her racist garbage. But you should know, not everyone is listening. So I handed him a folder filled with character references from building residents, neighbors who had witnessed Bay's dignity and Marcus' integrity firsthand. Sometimes the truth needs witnesses. So I said simply, as Marcus read through the letters, from the doorman who remembered Bay's kindness, from the elderly widow who had helped with her groceries, from the young mother whose children we had entertained with origami. I realized Elena's campaign had revealed something unexpected. The community of people who valued character over status, who recognized dignity regardless of accent or origin, was larger than the Mayans. The cost of truth was proving bigger than Marcus had anticipated, but so was its value. A lost client, a cancelled invitation, a whispered the accusation was stripping away the facade of acceptance he built his life around, revealing the conditional nature of his success in Elena's world. But it was also revealing something else, the strength that came from standing with integrity, the power of authentic relationships, and the unexpected allies who emerged when principles mattered more than profit. As he prepared for the battles ahead, Marcus understood that Elena's revenge might ultimately become his liberation.